So that's just for the propylene diol. Now that means the fact that the propylene diol is in the water means that the other compounds of Corexit must also be in the water. And that means this water is, well, like I said, the fact that it was mixed with oil, that you had a sample there with oil in it, means that the level of Corexit in that water was about 150 times the toxic level for fish. And for people, that also certainly means that the number is way too high. From what I'm seeing here, that you don't even have to see the oil to be exposed to Corexit, because the Corexit is in the water, not only in the oil, it's in the water itself. Because this GC I ran, I drew away from the oil. I did not get oil into the sample. It was just water. So I put just water in the machine. I'm getting 430 parts per million propylene glycol. And then, of course, the propylene glycol is considered to be a minor component, and that's the stuff I was measuring. The propylene glycol itself is 430 parts per million. That's just the propylene glycol. That's not the others. The others have to be even higher. If you add up all the components, that water was just jammed and stuff. The thing is that the level you find on the surface is many times higher than what's needed to kill fish. This stuff is hitting the beaches and is coming up as sea spray, and people are breathing it. And that can explain, if you're swimming in this stuff, if you're breathing this stuff, you're swallowing this stuff, you're going to have problems. It reminds me, when I'm thinking about those commercials from the governor of Florida saying, "Don't worry, everything's fine, come on down." Okay, that reminds me of that time that the EPA told the people at Ground Zero that there was no asbestos in the air, when there was. Okay, I don't know where they're getting their information, but this water is poisonous.
Studies have shown on silverfish and on shrimp specifically that Corexit is exponentially more dangerous than other dispersants that are available out there.
We are using an EPA-approved product. We are using a product that has low toxicity.
An Exxon report some years ago showed that the Corexit is actually 4 times more toxic than the crude oil itself.
Would you say that again?
We are using an EPA-approved product.
BP continues to spray a product called Corexit in the Gulf of Mexico despite demands from federal regulators.
You just listen to who makes the final decision, and in this case BP made the final decision and told the EPA to stuff it.
But that is not the case in BP. We care about the small people.
Again, we're calling the Coast Guard.
They get that BP has control of the Coast Guard.
A boat of BP contractors with 2 Coast Guard officers on board told us to turn around under threat of arrest.
This BP rule is not ours.
They get that BP has control of the Coast Guard.
But that is not the case in BP. We care about the small people.
We saw this with Exxon Valdez. We had 6,722 cases of upper respiratory illnesses. I'm still dealing with sick people 21 years later. 100% disabled. A lot of them have died.
The average lifespan of a person who did cleanup on the Exxon Valdez is 51 years old. Almost all those people who did work on the Exxon Valdez are now dead.
You just listen to who makes the final decision, and in this case BP made the final decision and told the EPA to stuff it.
But that is not the case in BP. We care about the small people.
The feds have demanded that BP switch to another chemical.
We are using an EPA-approved product.
In the last month, the company has used, brace yourself, more than 700,000 gallons of this chemical, which is toxic to human beings.
But that is not the case in BP. We care about the small people.
I mean, I've been up coughing up stuff. Your lungs fill up.
Burr says when he went to the doctor after feeling ill on Sunday, the doctor told him his lungs looked like the victims of a 3-pack-a-day smoker. And Burr says he has never smoked.
We are using a product that has low toxicity.
An Exxon report some years ago showed that the Corexit is actually 4 times more toxic than the crude oil itself.
Would you say that again?
We are not seeing huge elevations in toxins in the air or in the water.
A normal level ranges from 5 to 10 parts per billion. The reading was nearly 40 times that at nearly 1,200 parts per billion.
We are not seeing huge elevations in toxins in the air or in the water.
And the day after that, it dropped down to 46, before rising the next day to more than 1,000.
The people who work at BP who were coming to see her were only allowed to get Band-Aids and aspirin from her, and they were told that they only could go to the BP doctors if they wanted to get treated. Almost all those people who did work on the Exxon Valdez are now dead.
But that is not the case in BP. We care about the small people.
When you see all the boom deployed around all the little islands and everywhere, you assume that it's doing some good, right? Why would they throw it out there other than to give you the appearance that it's doing good? I mean, I want to grab them and bring them over there, but I don't know if I should be, you know? Yeah, don't worry. The oil that the boom doesn't absorb, the birds will. Everything's fine, BP. They got it. Mother Nature's got this one.
We are using a product that has low toxicity.
The hulls of their boats, whether it's from the oil or from the Corexit, are being eaten through.
We are using an EPA-approved product.
BP continues to spray a product called Corexit in the Gulf of Mexico despite demands from federal regulators.
We are using a product that has low toxicity.
An Exxon report some years ago showed that the Corexit is actually 4 times more toxic than the crude oil itself.
Would you say that again?
But that is not the case in BP. We care about the small people.
You just listen to who makes the final decision, and in this case, BP made the final decision and told the EPA to stuff it.
BP continues testing the containment cap. News 5 is doing some testing of our own. More than a week has passed since Alabama beaches have seen significant oil. And for the most part, the water looks okay. While it may be tempting to take a quick dip, you may think twice after seeing this report. It's a News 5 investigation testing the waters. We want to get a sample just over here where there are people actually in the water.
Our News 5 investigation took us from Gulf Shores to Orange Beach, to Katrina Key, to the Dauphin Island Marina. We collected samples of water, sand, and when we saw kids digging...
Do you mind if we get some water out of your sand hole here?
We got a sample of that, too. To our eye, the water looked pretty normal until we took those samples to a lab.
When testing for oil or grease, how much would be normal on the beach?
I wouldn't think that you'd find very much on the beach. There's no real normal amount. Normal is non-detected.
Bob Naiman is a chemist with nearly 30 years of experience. He tested our water and sand for oil and petroleum. Naiman says he wouldn't expect to see any more than 5 parts per million of the greasy stuff. But when he started testing the water, this is what he found. The first sample, taken just off Katrina Key, tested positive for more than 3 times that, 16 parts per million of oil and petroleum. The second sample was water from Orange Beach. Here we saw light sheen, and the test confirmed, coming back with 29 parts per million. In Gulf Shores, we came across some kids digging in the sand, some 20 yards from any waves.
You mind if I get a sample of your water?
But even there, the sample came back 51 parts per million. The numbers keep getting higher. Gulf Shores beach water, right where people were swimming, showed 66 parts per million. And the sand, where beachgoers are walking, has 211 parts per million. The sixth sample was a spot in Orange Beach where again we found kids playing. And we found our highest content of oil and petroleum, 221 parts per million. But the test didn't stop there. The sample we haven't yet told you about is the one collected from Dauphin Island Marina, near Samboon, which we can only imagine's been handled by cleanup workers. When Naiman added an organic solvent to separate the oil from the water, just like he did with all the other samples, this sample exploded right in his lab.
Like almost instantaneous. Actually, maybe 1 second. It's just weird.
The results surprised even our chemist.
We think that it most likely happened due to the presence of either methanol or methane gas